Hey everybody, back out in the garage today, and I'm looking over a cylinder head here, this 1300 head, that I'm going to be giving it a little bit of a refresh on the exhaust valve. What I'm going to do is I've already taken out the exhaust valve, the old exhaust valve, which is quite carboned up, and I'm going to be replacing that with a new valve. This is a 30 millimeter 40 horse to 1300 sized exhaust valve, and the old valve, the reason I'm replacing these valves is because I'm getting ready to put these heads into service. I've got a carburetor kit coming that hopefully will allow me to run these 1300 cc heads on my 1965 40 horsepower engine. As some of you might be aware, the intakes were sloped on the 1300 heads, and whereas they were straight on the 40 horse, so you can't just bolt a set of 1300 heads on to a 40 horse engine unless you also change the intakes. And the 40 horse engine is probably narrower than a 1300, so you can't just bolt the intake on either. You'd have to cut and modify their intake if you're running a single carb. What I plan to do is run a dual set of carbs on these 66 heads. So got some 34 millimeter PDSIT carbs coming, hopefully, and that's why I want to get these heads ready. I've already replaced the exhaust valve on this cylinder, but I wanted to bring you guys along as I did the same thing on this cylinder. And so before you just drop a valve in there, you want to take and mate the head of the valve to the valve seat so you get the best seal. So what we're going to do to achieve that, hopefully, is to do what's called lap the valve to the head. We're going to drop this valve down in there. We're going to apply some grinding compound underneath the head. We're going to put a suction cup on it, and we're going to rotate that clockwise, counterclockwise at a rapid rate until it gets quiet. It'll be noisy at first due to the grit and the mismatched surfaces of the valve versus the seat, but then when it gets quiet, we know the lapping has worked. So we'll be doing that here in a little while. I've got a tool that you'll need some type of tool to do the lapping, and I've got this suction cup tool from Goodson. If anybody wants the part number, let me know and I'll post that up. But this is, in my opinion, is a step up from the old wooden stick ones. What you'll do is you'll rotate it like so, but it's a step up from those because those lose suction after a time. This one has a little hole in the head, and when you push the button and you've got it on top of the valve, it produces suction. You can push the button again to let it release the suction. You don't run into the old, the stick one stops working, at least not as often with one of these. So anyway, something else to consider is the reason you might want to replace an exhaust valve that's on a cylinder head with unknown mileage and usage is these tend to stretch. They'll stretch right where the stem of the valve meets the head, and if you're unlucky, they can break. And if you have a valve head break off while the engine's in service, this head's going to bounce around inside the cylinder, the combustion chamber. It's going to tear everything up. And if you're really unfortunate, you'll break a hole in the piston and the parts will flow through the engine. All the metallic parts, as you can imagine, won't do your engine any good. So it's best to be safe rather than sorry and just replace these things, which is what I'm trying to do today. I can't tell visually by looking at it what, if any, stretching has taken place, but I'm just not going to allow it the chance. I'm going to replace these exhaust valves. I think the intake valves are okay, so we won't be doing those just yet, but I might save that for another video. Okay, here's some grinding compound, and here's the valve. I'm going to just put a little bit of this on the tip. Doesn't take much. And I can spread it around the head of the valve. Just a little dab more. And we drop the valve into the guide. Okay. Grab the suction cup. There's that end again with the hole in it. And you're going to place that onto the valve head. I'm going to push the button down before we place it on the valve head, so when we let up on it, the suction will start. Okay. All right. Position the thing. Let the button go. Start lapping. We're listening for that change in tone to indicate the seating. You hear how it changes to a higher pitch? That's what we're after here. So you lift the valve a little, drop it back, start again. You might have to keep applying suction, that's okay. There it goes again. Do it again. Lift up, rotate. Lift up. All right, and what you might have to do if you keep having to apply suction, you might have just a little bit of dirt or something on the valve. So let me do one thing real quick. Take just a little bit of brake clean, hit the head of the valve with it, clean it, and then take a dry part of the towel, dry it. Do the same with the suction cup. Just give it a little bit of cleaning. Dry it off and then try again. It should hold a little better now. So here we go. There we go. Don't be in a rush to do this, because time makes perfection, and more patience is better. I'm hearing what I like here, sounding good. Oh yeah. the proof is in the pudding. We'll take a look at the seat and the head of the valve in a few minutes. We should see a noticeable difference. Lift up. Rinse and repeat. All right, I think we're good. So we let go. Supposed to let go. Okay, maybe you have to tip this tool a little bit to get it to let go. And take the valve out. Maybe easier said than done. Okay. And let's wipe off the head of the valve. Look at all that. Look at the uniformity of the valve grinding compound that's gone on the head there. That is exactly what we want. Let's wipe that off a little bit. Move over to the head itself. Dry that. And you're going to want to, definitely going to want to make sure that this head is cleaned of any and all grinding compound residue. If you don't, you'll release that same grinding compound into your engine. So we intend to do that here. I'm not going to show it on camera, but just take a look at the sealing surface there. It was all black before. Now there's a nice uniform gray color around it, which will get even better when I hit it with some more brake clean. But again, take a look at the head of the valve. I wiped it off, but you can still see this line around it where it matched perfectly with the surface of the valve seat. And this is going really well here. So anyway, that's all I'm going to show on camera today for the lapping. And you guys, if you have any questions, be sure to hit me up. And I'll do my best to answer any questions you might have. And this can be applied not just to these stockish heads, but this can also carry forward for more high performance heads, such as the dual spring high rev heads. Anyway, if you've got the means to get the valve out, you need yourself a spring compressor tool. Once it's out and you've got the new valve, of course, then this grinding procedure, this lapping procedure, can be utilized on stock or high performance. And what you're doing here is you're just getting a better seal. You're trying to give yourself every advantage you can when you're building an engine. And one of the things you want is a tight seal between the valve and the seat, and no wiggle in the guide, so that you don't leak combustion. You can get more horsepower from this if you do this right and you're patient. You can actually develop, I don't know how many horsepower, but it's been said in the How to Hot Rod Your VWs manual from Bill, I want to say Bill somebody. I can find a link if anybody cares to that book. But anyway, I think it's Bill Wilson, that's it. Or Tom Wilson, one of the two. Bill somebody or Tom somebody. Anyhow, he notes that you can actually gain horsepower by making sure your valves and heads have an airtight sealing surface, which is what we're trying to do here. And later on too, when you're building the engine, these are 77 millimeter spigots. The 1300 used a longer stroke, but the same bore as the 1200 40 horse. In other words, 77 millimeters. You can take your cylinders, put those on here, apply some grinding compound to those, and you can rock those back and forth by hand and get yourself a gas tight seal on the head. So you'll have a tight valve to head and then a tight cylinder to head seal, and you're just adding horsepower to your recipe if you'll do that. So anyway, I hope this part has been helpful. Let's take a look at something else real quick. All right, I wanted to also say something really quick about the choice of valve spring compressor that you're going to use. With these stock heads and single springs, you don't need anything too exotic. Probably even 1600 heads, same thing. Until you get up to dual springs, one of these bench mounted, let me get you a good picture of the whole thing here. One of these bench mounted setups like this with a lever arm. You can get these most any VW shop. This one's not even fastened to the bench. It's got plenty enough horsepower to do the job here. Even so, oops, I can't get the camera to stay put. There we go. All right, and you can see when I press down on it, it's like butter, you know. The retainer sits all the way down, and all I have to do is then go over and grab my keepers one at a time. Dabbed a little bit of oil on the tip of the valve stem beforehand. Press that down, drop that keeper. Easier said than done. Here we go, we'll get it. Oh my goodness gracious. It's not the spring compressor that's the issue here. It's the operator of said spring compressor. Seems like, there we go, there's one. Now let's get the other one. Drop these things. Make sure you got the taper of the keeper facing inward toward the head. Make your life a lot easier. And sit that one on. Okay, and let the pressure off, and boom, your valve is back in the head. So that's not an issue for these type heads, like I say. Where you might run into trouble is, let me bring you over. I know I had another video talking about a high horsepower so-called valve spring compressor, which I have in this ProForm unit. This, I'm still trying to figure out how to mount it in a fixture so I don't have to wobble it around all the time. This, while it has more than enough leverage to handle even the toughest springs for VWs like a K800 or a 650 spring, which are on my CB Performance heads, I found some issues with it, and I'll show those to you here. Notice I've got this, the valve head end has a piece of wood and some hastily, crudely tied string. I did that because the adjustment that's built into it, you either have too much leverage or not enough. I found the block of wood to be necessary. And I also had to mangle this compressor to get it to fit my heads. This tip here with the hole in it, at one point was circular. You can see the top radius of it has a circular shape still. I had to take my 13,000 RPM grinder and cut around it to get it to where it wouldn't dig into the VW heads. My aluminum heads, I did not look kindly upon them having them gouged by this thing. So it has to be modified for the user's purpose. They're not plug and play. Maybe they are for V8s, which I think this ProForm is sold to handle up to a 1,000 PSI spring pressure. But for VWs, this is a monster, and it has to be tuned, tweaked a little bit. So anyway, that's what you have to be aware of when you're, depending on the type of head you're working with and the type of spring you're compressing. So anyhow, that's going to do it for this video. Is there anything else I want to talk about? Okay, one more thing real quick. The fixture that I put my cylinder head from a few minutes ago in, the 1300 head, and this would probably work on others. I've taken a piece of wood, a 2x6 or whatever, drilled a couple of holes in the end of it, and I put the, let me walk back over to the bench here. I put the rocker stand, if I can get them in the frame here, studs in those holes, and the head sits flat. You have to drill it kind of close to the edge of the board. Your mileage may vary. You'll want to do this on your own before you just randomly pick a spot to drill the board. You want to fit it so that when you lay this head down and you've got the opposite side exposed, the valve head side, you want these springs to clear the board and these studs to fit into those holes so this thing doesn't wiggle around and you can rotate it up and down. So anyway, that was the only other thing I had to talk about. Other than that, that's going to do it for today. And thanks for anyone who's hung around to the end of the video. I hope I conveyed some information that will be a help to all of us VW lovers. And if you got any questions, as always, please leave me a comment. I'll get back with you. And appreciate you watching. Appreciate everyone out there. Y'all stay safe. Love y'all, and God bless, and I'll talk to you soon.